With the Hunter Biden case going on, we can see that there is a two-tiered system of justice that we have here in America, and it is deeply disturbing to see firsthand. Also in the news, we have the House Oversight Committee proving that Joe Biden was present during his son's business meetings, even though he denied this many times in the past. All of that and more on today's episode.
Facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
Looking at the situations that we have here plaguing the United States right now, we can see that some of the people can lie on gun forms, not pay taxes, smoke illegal substances, and still, they would never be charged with any wrongdoing. This means that there is different rules depending on whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, aka a two-tiered justice system, something that normally happens in a third world country. But it is sadly happening here. This is proven time and time again. Every time someone that is a higher up Democrat that gets to trial, you can see this clear as day. This happened again, even as recently as the Hunter Biden trial, which was last Wednesday. In this case, you can see that instead of going through the court, Hunter wanted to make a plea deal with the DOJ. But the thing is that the plea deal from Hunter is always going to be filled with favors and protection by the DOJ, which is highly politicized. But the plea deal that Hunter agreed to had the DOJ trying to have Hunter Biden cleared of all charges and set off scot-free. Not just the gun charge or any other single violation, but all of them together, which screams corruption. This was true until the judge for the case found out about it and put a stop to it, which is great. She did the one thing you are never supposed to do and wanted to ask a couple of questions. Yes, whenever you ask a Democrat any question they don't either want to answer or don't even know the answer to it, they just get mad. We already know that if you start asking the left any questions, their whole world starts to fall apart because you're supposed to just agree with them without any pushback whatsoever. The judge for the case said, and I quote, "It seems like to me that you are saying, quote, just rubber stamp the agreement, Your Honor. This seems to me to be form of substance." She asked defense lawyers and prosecutors to explain why she should accept the deal. According to the AP, the attorneys appeared to scribble over the deal's terms too, retreating to their corners to discuss the issues before they met at the prosecutor's table, and at one point could be heard yelling at each other and saying, and I quote, "Well, we'll just rip it all up." If we take a deeper look here, we would see that Hunter had it made for him, or at least he always did. He knows that everyone is corrupt within America and they will all stand up for him or feel the wrath of the Biden crime family. But on Wednesday, it was out of the norm and there was too much questioning and pushback from the judge to let Hunter get off in the way that he wanted since the beginning of the trial. There was also a time in which Hunter was very confusing. Hunter was asked if he was pleading guilty of his own free will, and he answered yes. Now, more than ever, I think that he's still on drugs because this is just the most stupid thing you can do. But looking specifically at the gun charge case, we can see that the judge was worried about a provision that created a rule for her to find out if Hunter violated the terms herself. She responded that there is no such role for judges, but the lawyer claimed that they were just asking her to play a fact-finding role as a neutral party, which is BS. If you are being charged by the FBI for committing a crime, you don't ask the judge to see if you broke the rules. You prove it or deny it in the court with evidence and a jury. Then, the judge asked Biden to be more specific about his business relationships and to discuss his substance use issues as she combined through the plea agreement. She asked him to name the Ukrainian and Chinese entities referred to without the names in the agreement, in which he never answered. With that being said, we can now, more than ever before, tell that there is a two-sided justice system here in America, and depending on what you have in store for the rest of the prosecutors or the rest of the DOJ, you get off scot-free or you get life in prison. So it all depends on exactly what you are doing and exactly who you are as a person. With that being said, we're going to be digging into the headlines of the week. Moving into the first article, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We have House Oversight Committee confirms that President Biden was present during son's foreign business phone calls. Hunter Biden's former business partner reportedly confirmed to the House Oversight Committee that President Joe Biden was no more than 20 calls with his son. Hunter Biden's former business partner reportedly confirmed to the House Oversight Committee that President Joe Biden was on more than 20 calls with his son during a closed-door hearing on Monday, where Republican members pressed for details about alleged foreign business dealings involving the president during his time in the Obama administration. Devin Archer, who served as a director of Ukrainian energy company Burisma alongside Hunter Biden, reportedly ignored questions from the press as he walked into the O'Neill House office building. The committee was expected to interview Archer for approximately 5 hours, where Republican and Democrat members rotate between hour blocks to investigate the key witnesses who have alleged Hunter put then Vice President Joe Biden on speakerphone roughly 24 times as Hunter spoke to his former business partners or investors beginning in 2014. Rep. Dan Goldman, Democrat from New York, who was reportedly the only left-wing politician present in the room during Archer's testimony, said Archer, quote, indicated that Hunter spoke to his father every day, and approximately 20 times over the course of a 10-year relationship, the Daily Mail reported, adding, they never spoke about business dealings and only exchanged niceties, like talking about the, quote, weather. Oversight member Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene told the Daily Mail that Archer said, quote, the Bidens were in the actual business of influence peddling. Quote, it's extremely damning, she said. Quote, we have Devin Archer coming out and telling the truth that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden spoke over 20 times about his business deals, not about the weather, not about what was for lunch about his business deals, Green added. The Biden administration, including the president, has reportedly claimed he did not speak to his son about foreign business deals. Oversight Chair James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, issued a subpoena against Archer last month, claiming that Biden's associate played a significant role in the family's business deals abroad. Quote, he had an opportunity to be a hero, Comer said on Sunday. House Oversight Committee Democrats reportedly plan to highlight a transcript interview with Mikhaila Zelensky, co-founder of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma, who denied having any contact with Joe Biden while Hunter Biden worked for the company. Mr. Zelensky's statements are just one of many that have debunked the corruption allegations. Oversight member Rep. Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Minnesota, said an associate of Archer's previously said he is testifying out of his obligation to his civic duty, stating that he has nothing to hide, to revenge, to enact, nor anyone to protect other than his family, and he feels he has been handcuffed by the absurdity bogus fraud case into remaining silent. In a forum where he has immunity, he can at least start to speak the truth. Mr. Archer will do what he has plans to do all along, which is to show up in the morning and to honestly answer the questions that are put to him by the congressional investigators, Matthew Skocewicz, attorney for Archer, reportedly said. An exclusive report published by the Daily Mail shows documents obtained by Hunter's abandoned laptop, interviews with sources, and subpoenaed records allegedly indicating potential foreign influence violations from China, Russia, and Ukraine to Romania, Kazakhstan, Mexico, and other Latin American countries. Over the weekend, the Department of Justice requested the United States District Judge Ronnie Abrams schedule a date for Archer to report to prison after a jury convicted him last year in a Native American tribal entity fraud scheme in which Biden was not implicated. But the prison sentence had been delayed amid the appeals process. Yep. So what you're going to do is you're going to spill the beans, and maybe we can work out some sort of plea deal with this guy to let him get off on a lesser charge if he comes forward and says exactly what happened within him and the Biden crime family. So that's exactly what I would say right here. If you come forward and you say the truth about exactly what happened, then you don't have as much time behind bars. If you don't want to say anything, then you will get the full sentence. That's exactly what we can do. Moving on to the next article, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We have DeSantis releases his 10-point declaration of economic independence policy platform. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis unveiled his presidential economic policy agenda while on the campaign trail on Monday in New Hampshire. The platform debuted the Declaration of Economic Independence as a 10-point policy outline that mirrors the agenda that DeSantis has pursued in Florida. Under DeSantis' Florida, under DeSantis, Florida has been ranked as the best economy in the nation, while CNBC calling it, quote, white hot. The Cato Institute currently ranks Florida as the top state in the country for fiscal policy freedom, which it says consists of taxes, government employment, spending, debt, and fiscal decentralization. The Institute also ranks Florida first in economic freedom, which includes fiscal and regulatory policy. The state also leads the country in new business startups. DeSantis' agenda outlines what it says are the problems with the United States economy, including high prices sparked by reckless government spending, lackluster economy growth, a ballooning national debt, an increasingly competitive China, high taxes, and too many regulations. The campaign takes a hard line against communist China, saying that their economic goal is, quote, we win, they lose. The campaign says that the Declaration of Economic Independence seeks to break America away from the failed elites that have orchestrated America's decline. China, reckless government spending, central planners, far-left agendas like the Green New Deal, and powerful woke corporations. The 10-point plan includes, number 1, ending America's abusive relationship with China by reversing ever-increasing trade deficits, reshore capital and supply chains, and demand that American companies act in accordance with American interests, the campaign says. Number 2, achieving 3% economic growth by cutting Biden-era regulations, lowering taxes, and initiating investment in the United States. Number 3, making America energy independent by utilizing the vast domestic energy resources the United States has and modernizing the United States grid for future growth and national security reasons. I completely agree with this one. Number 5, clamping down on the woke ESG initiatives in major corporations. I completely agree. Number 6, returning the United States to an economic system of metrocracy, which I completely agree with. Number 7, I believe so. 1, 2, 3. No, number 6, reforming the education system by supporting school choice nationwide, protecting parental rights, reforming accurization, and steering forward toward programs and institutions that support the jobs of the future. Number 7, protecting American jobs from those who illegally enter the United States by enforcing federal immigration laws and securing the border. Number 8, reining in the Federal Reserve by appointing a chairman who will focus on maintaining a stable dollar instead of the political pressures of the day. Number 8, ending corporate bailouts and requiring more transparency from the big banks and financial actors. And number 10, end reckless government spending. And I completely agree with this full stop. I completely agree with this because of the fact that these are all of the most important things that we need in our economy today to actually get our economy in balance, in order, and for us not to go through the hardships that we are today with the inflation at a high rate that we are all crying for. When we see gas prices, I just want to just walk away from the gas station. But of course, we need gas for our jobs. Which is a sad thing. Even electric bills are pretty high this time of year because it is the summer, so obviously that's how it comes. But with that being said, we're going to be digging into the media's takes.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to be starting off with this CNN article. We actually have Trump's legal problems grow. So does his political power. So, of course, we already knew as soon as Trump gets attacked, then his support on the right at least goes up. So the Democrats already know this. I don't know why they're acting like they don't know this. CNN, you know this. When you attack Trump, when he says, oh, the crooked media, oh, you're lying. Yeah, okay. That's when people start going with Trump and against the mainstream media, because we know that you're politicizing everything that he does. We know for a fact that you have a one-sided narrative that you're trying to push. We know that, okay? We're not dumb. We know exactly what you guys on CNN and MSNBC and all of the left-wing organizations, we know exactly what you're doing. That's why people more broadly go with Trump, not against Trump when he's being attacked. when Trump's being attacked, we don't attack him to the left, we attack him to the right, because that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be agreeing with the people that obviously have a motive against Donald Trump in the very first place. That doesn't make much sense. But moving with the article, we actually have, he is burning cash on expanding multi-pronged legal war with fronts in courtrooms up and down the East Coast, New York, Florida, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. Trials are already scheduled for March in Manhattan and May in Florida, of course, because you guys are wanting to get him on cases that have nothing to do with anything. Like the trial in New York has nothing to do with anything. It literally is just because of this one woman that comes out and says that, oh yeah, he did something to me in a department store back in 2000 and whatever. It doesn't even matter. If you cared so much, why did you wait 20 years to come forward? It doesn't make much sense here. But Trump's place atop the Republican primary field for the 2024 presidential race has never felt more secure, and his chances against President Joe Biden have never felt more competitive. Trump's political power feeds on his criminal exposure. In a self-propelling cycle, Trump's grassroots political supporters give a portion of their donations to his leadership PAC, which is paying his epic legal bills. More than $40 million in the first half of this year alone. Of course. I mean, this is exactly why I don't donate to PACs. I donate to people's individual campaigns. And I'm not going to get into who I donate. You guys can make your own judgments on exactly who you guys should be donating to this campaign. But moving on with that, I don't agree that he should be using this for personal use. I don't think that the PAC should be, and especially because it just came out now that the PAC is actually, asking for a refund for donations that they gave to individual people in the past. So I don't think that that he should be doing this, but also at the same exact time, I can see why they're doing this. And his campaign fueled by outrage over his legal problems that Trump alleges are politically motivated. They are. Remains the best bet for outstanding the 2 criminal cases he currently faces. 2 more criminal trials could be coming. Federal prosecutors may carry forward with allegations related to Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, and the Fulton County District Attorney in Georgia is wrapping up her own case and could bring charges by the end of August. Of course, because they want to do this right before the beginning of the election. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen this year, but it's going to happen next year. So let's just see what happens with that. Separately, the New York Times and CNN's Christian Holmes reported Monday that Trump's leadership PAC, Save America, has asked for a refund on a $60 million contribution it gave to a super PAC formed to support Trump. A legal defense fund is also being set up to help offset legal costs for Trump associates. His aide, Walt Norda, and a Mar-a-Lago property manager, Carlos de Oliveira, are listed as co-defendants in federal charges related to alleged attempts to hide classified material from the FBI. Of course, he should not have did that, but at the same exact time, he did it in the past, and every single other president also does this, but I think that he's just being Trump is being a little bit sloppy when it comes to the FBI documents, but of course, this is exactly why he's using this PAC. I mean, yes, I do agree that he should be having his own PAC separately just for him to have defense. So he should have a defense budget, and then he should have the PAC that he says is going to be used for ballot harvesting. So those should be 2 different PACs entirely. De Oliveira made an internal court appearance Monday in Miami, but he did so without a Florida-based attorney, which might seem like an accident if Norita had not done the same thing. Arrangements for both men were delayed as a result. Delay is Trump's top legal strategy. His legal team has been working hard to delay and disassemble the cases against him. Quote, every day of delay counts, said CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez, appearing on Inside Politics. Quote, every bit of it will add up. The former president's overall goal, he has made it very clear, is to wait until after the election to actually go to trial. Of course, this is exactly what we did with Hillary. This is exactly what we did with Joe Biden. This is exactly what we did with every other Democrat. Why is this so different when it comes to Republicans? Why? It only affects the election if it's a Democrat? Of course, because you guys don't like the Republican. That's exactly why you're going to treat your friends different. Evidence of the delay strategy is in many of his moves. Trump's request to have charges brought by the Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg regarding his 2016 hush money payment scheme involving an adult film star moved to federal court has been denied. Trump is appealing his ruling. He has also tried to revive a previously abandoned RICO lawsuit alleging a conspiracy against him by Democrats and Hillary Clinton. Read CNN's report. No, we won't. Endgame in Georgia. Security measures have been ramped up around the Atlanta courthouse in Fulton County, Georgia, in a years-long investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Results in the state is complete, according to District Attorneys Fannie Willis. Quote, "We've been working for 2.5 years and we're ready to go," Willis told CNN affiliate WXIA. Whether that means Trump will ultimately face charges in Georgia is unclear, although Willis has said that she will make the decision by the end of August. On Monday, the judge who has overseen Willis' investigation, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney, dismissed Trump's latest effort to circumvent the Georgia case, making clear that former president will have to wait until he is actually indicted there to fight potential charges. He has also alluded to a footnote to how Trump had fanned fury at his legal problems of his own political purposes. Quote, "And for some, being the subject of a criminal investigation can a Rumpelstiltskin be turned into a golden political capital, making it seem more providential than problematic," McBurney wrote, drawing a parallel between the former president and the villain of the Brothers Grimm fairy tale who runs straw into gold. Trump is also trying to save McBurney bounced from a case. A hearing before another judge is scheduled for August 10th. Trump's political fortunes stay bright. Of course it does, because he's Trump. So he takes these attacks on him, and he takes it like a champ because he does have thick skin. All these people, like I was saying, all these people that are in the presidential campaigns, all these candidates have thick skin because they have to have thick skin, or else they're not going to make it out alive. Now, moving on to the next article, we actually have an MSNBC article. We have why the target letter to an uncharged Mar-a-Lago employee matters. Okay, so why is a maintenance guy in a Mar-a-Lago residence retaining in any way to the case against Trump? That's because of the fact that these people want to target anybody that they want to attack. But let's see MSNBC's excuse here. You'd be forgiven if you had forgotten about it or simply missed it in the first place. But on July 14th, just days before the former president Donald Trump got his second target letter from special counsel Jack Smith's team, the New York Times reported that an unnamed low-level employee of the Trump organization received a target letter of their own. According to the Times, that person received a letter sometime, quote, in the past few weeks after appearing in May. Before a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C., Smith's team was reportedly scrutinizing whether the employee's grand jury testimony was truthful. The only other detail about the employee was really about someone else, Stanley Woodward, who represents Trump's main body man and initial co-defendant in the classified documents case, Walt Nerida, as well as a host of other Trump world figures, where Woodward was named as the lawyer of an unnamed employee in the Times report. I've long wondered if that unnamed employee was Yeskel Treves, the Mar-a-Lago IT director identified as a Trump employee in the last week's superseding indictment. And ever since the superseding indictment was issued, I've also suspected Treves ultimately avoided the fate of Trump's newest co-defendant, Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira, by ultimately coming clean with prosecutors. Last night, CNN reported that Treves was indeed the employee who received the target letter. Here's why it seemed likely to me before CNN's reporting. Of course, now they're battling. I guessed it first. I guessed it first. Nobody cares. First, as the description of an unnamed employee who received the target letter, Treves, I can't pronounce his name, reportedly testified before a DC grand jury in mid-May. But it's more than that. The superseding indictment is chock full of details that could have come only from a live witness, as opposed to a seized phone or security footage. In particular, prosecutors allege that de Oliveira insisted on June 27, 2022, that, quote, the boss wanted the server storing security footage deleted, and then Travis objected. De Oliveira both retaliated the demand and asked, quote, what are we going to do? It seems likely Smith's team learned of this alleged conversation via Travis himself. More significantly, it appears Travis spoke to investigators sometime after June 8th when Trump and Narita were first indicted, according to a Washington Post report on Saturday. It was only in the wake of the indictment that Trevorus decided he had more he wanted to tell the authorities about his conversations with De Oliveira. Moreover, the second wave of the discovery produced to Trump in Narita earlier this month includes the memorialization of witness interviews conducted between May 12, 2023 and June 23, 2023. A witness who testified before the grand jury in mid-May received a target letter based on perceived falsehoods in their testimony in the weeks thereafter, and then decided to provide new information after the initial indictment easily could have been interviewed sometime later last month. And then there's the question of whether Woodward, who was the reported target letter recipient's lawyer as of 2 weeks ago, still represents Travis. Reached by NBC News last Friday, Woodward declined to comment. Last night, however, the Post revealed that after Travis, quote, offered information in implementing all three defendants in an alleged conspiracy to cover up evidence, a judge was consulted on whether Woodward could similarly represent Narita and Travis consistent with attorneys' ethic rules. While the Post does not say how the judge reacted, it does report that a different lawyer, quote, not paid by Trump's PAC, advised Travis before he spoke to investigators. It remains unclear who represents Travis and who is paying for the representation. NBC News has not confirmed whether Travis is considered a cooperating witness or whether he provided new information in the exchange of any detail with prosecutors. According to the Times, Travis still works at Mar-a-Lago, but based on everything we've seen, it appears he chose liberty over loyalty. While others, including Trump co-defendants Narita and De Oliveira, ultimately choose a path similar to that of Travis, have the people identified as Trump employees number 3 and 5 in the superseding indictment already done so. I'm trying to fit puzzle pieces together, and we may not know the poster of various witnesses, much less their identities, for some time, but watch this space. No, I'm not going to watch this space because it does not matter what you say, because you don't even know what the hell's going on. Just because somebody worked at Trump's property, Mar-a-Lago, does not mean that they have to be indicted. Just because of the fact that they're going through the footage and saying, and they're being coerced into doing a certain thing, it does not mean that they need to be investigated. And of course, they're going to do investigations because they want to get him. But of course, at the same exact time, he can have documents there. If he has the official clearance for those documents, he can have those documents, because former presidents get briefed on every single war that's happening every single time a war breaks out, or if anything else is going on throughout the world, they're always briefed on it. The second that the information comes out, former presidents are briefed on it. In the middle of the night, they'll be woken up and they need to get briefed that very second, and they need to start taking notes immediately. So that's exactly what happens with Trump. So he gets a lot of documents in the mail. So it's perfectly reasonable if he does have documents that they sent him. So, of course, there's going to be people that see this footage, and of course, he's going to want to cover up the fact that he has these documents, of course, but when they request these documents, he must give them back. That's the biggest deal here. So, I mean, that just makes it look very shady, of course, when you start deleting footage. So let's see what happens with this very case right here. But moving on to the next article, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We have Chris Christie hammers Joe Biden over inflation. Quote, Jimmy Carter of the 2020. Of course. Of course. I mean, Chris Christie is not going to win. I mean, if you think that Chris Christie is going to win, I think you have another thing coming. I think that the most that he can possibly get is about 10%, and I think that's the most that he can do. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie slammed President Joe Biden on Sunday for a high inflation rates that have defined his presidency, saying that he is a Jimmy Carter of the 2020s. CNN host Cassie Hunt asked Christie if Biden deserved any credit for inflation rates slowly starting to come down after peaking at 40-year highs under his presidency. Quote, and this is his response, quote, he deserves credit for the fact that everything is 17% more expensive today than it was when he took oath of office on January 20th, 2021. Christie said, quote, interest rates are at one of its our highest level in 25 years, making it much more expensive for people to buy a home, to buy a car, and to be able to invest in their business and grow it to create jobs. This guy is the Jimmy Carter of the 2020s. Quote, and his inflation that he created, and don't take my word for it, he said, quote, Democratic economist, former Treasury Secretary to Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, has said that Joe Biden created this inflation through his ridiculous spending, of course. But the same exact spending continued from Trump and from the other presidents before them. Trump and Obama and Bill Clinton and vice versa, and just keeps going, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But of course, we're going, or Bush, I should say, Bush, and then Bill Clinton before that. But that's besides the point here. We need to actually open our eyes and see, listen, this spending didn't just start under Joe Biden, and it didn't end under Joe Biden. Every single president is going to spend the exact same way unless we get a person in there that actually cares about the debt limits. Quote, and I'm not going to sit here and say something different on your program that I will say anywhere else in this country. And second, they need someone who can deliver on the issues that they care about on the border, on Obamacare, on the national debt, on entitlement programs. He added, Donald Trump failed on all of those things when he was president, even with a Republican Congress. Elect me for president and I won't. Okay, but the thing is, then why did you lose all of the other times that you ran for president if you're going to win? No, I'm a one-issue voter, and you need to win. I'm not going to vote for you if you can't win. You need to win. Moving on to the next Daily Wire article, we actually have okay, so this is the article. Nikki Haley pushes mental competency test for politicians older than 75 years old, of course. Of course, we need that. We need to see, listen, if you're over a certain age, we need to make sure that you're not senile like the president of the United States at the moment. Former South Carolina Republican Governor Nikki Haley said over the weekend that politicians should have to take a mental competency test once they hit 75 years old to ensure that they are fit to serve the public. Haley, 51, made her remarks during a Sunday interview on CBS News' Face the Nation with the host Margaret Brennan. Quote, we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75, she said. Quote, and I don't even say that to be disrespectful. I don't care if you do it for 50 and older. What I'm saying is that the people in DC that are making decisions on our national security, they're deciding our future of our kids' economy, she continued. We need to know they're on top of their game. When you go and look at Biden, you ask him what country he was in the week before, he can't say it. When you go and ask him how many grandchildren he has, and he doesn't know. When you go and see him falling asleep with leaders, that's concerning. Haley, who is running for the GOP presidential nomination, said that she believes Americans need a new generational leader as president, and that it was time for us to have a new generation across the board. Republicans have lost at least 7 out of 8 popular votes of president. She said that's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. We've got to start going with a new generation so that we can do that. We have to leave all of these older diplomats and Democrats and Republicans behind. And let's start dealing with the new solutions that the American people can feel like government's working for them again. And I completely agree. We need to have our politicians work for us, not work for themselves, like the Biden crime family, which just smuggles 20% for the big guy and doesn't worry about us, the American taxpaying citizens that pay their very bills. Moving on to the next article, we actually have a Breitbart article. We have DeSantis' two-tier justice system got worse on Trump's watch. And I can kind of see where he's coming from. During an interview with Fox News Channel aired on Monday, broadcast a special report, 2024 Republican presidential candidate, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said that there is 2 standards of justice, and Donald Trump was president 4 years ago. This problem got worse under him. He did not succeed in draining the swamp. DeSantis also predicted that Trump would have a very difficult time getting that type of personnel to join the administration that you would need to take down the administration state. DeSantis said, quote, well, this is why we say there are 2 standards of justice. If Hunter were a Republican, he'd be in jail by now. You look at all of the smoke, and yeah, the FBI, where are the search warrants? Where is the grand jury? Where is the aggressiveness that they've shown going after some Republicans, you just don't see it. He added that the treatment of former President Donald Trump is another example of the two tiers of justice, and stated that with the Mar-a-Lago raid, they went through everything they could get any piece of information on, and they're not doing that with Hunter. Of course, they didn't do it with Hillary back in 2016, so we look at that, but look at all of the possible corruption. Hunter, he's selling paintings for over $1 million. My 6-year-old daughter does better paintings than him. Maybe we'll put ours up and see what kind of things that we can catch. I don't think that we're going to get $1 million on it. We will go in there, and we will make all of this stuff better very quickly. DeSantis continued, and look, Donald Trump was president for 4 years. This problem got worse under him. He did not succeed in draining the swamp. My worst critics and opponents in Florida will acknowledge. The governor says that he's going to do something, and you can take that to the bank. He's going to do it. He added, quote, if you want to slay the administrative state, you've got to be disciplined, you've got to be focused, and you've got to have the people surrounding you that are going to go and support the mission. I think that former president would have a very difficult time getting this type of personnel to join his administration, that you would need to actually bring this stuff to fruition. And I completely agree. I mean, DeSantis is one of those politicians that are not really good at speeches and igniting the whole entire crowd. He's more of like, I'm just gonna do my job, and I can appreciate people like that. Moving into the next article, we actually have a Federalist article. We have question for leftists: why do you want to rob black slaves of their rich history? Now, I can kind of see where they're coming from in this, because of the fact that in Florida schools, they're actually teaching about the slave times, and that's in their curriculum for the public schools. We read about this, I think, in our last episode of this show. So if you actually look at it, DeSantis said that slaves took away beneficial techniques that they could use to better their life. So this doesn't mean that, slavery was good because it actually taught them good things. I mean, yes and no. Yes, they did get taught good things that they could use to benefit their own life. But also at the same exact time, we can say that, and you can never say an and. You can just say that. You could just say, oh, slavery was bad. That's it. You can say slavery was bad, and we learned to make the most out of your situation. You can't say that. That's exactly what DeSantis is saying. But of course, the leftists are attacking him because they don't know exactly what words mean anymore. Moving with this article, another media manufactured controversy in recent days, which naturally fixated on their Florida bungalow, relates to the way K-12 public schools in the state will instruct students on African American studies, slavery in particular. The curriculum is comprehensive, with lessons ranging from contributions to influential art and literature by blacks to their own perception in the armed forces to the civil rights movement. And, of course, much of it deals with the history of slavery. That part was supposedly bothers people like the New York Times' Jamal Bowie. These guidelines seem like an exercise in aggravation and blame shifting, wrote Bowie on Friday. Quote, an attempt to downplay the enormity of the American slavery and its defining feature, heredity, racial bondage. What he means by equivocation and blame shifting is actually otherwise known as simply as context. Democrats and leftists prefer to think of slavery in only one way: the infantile, superficial mental image of a racist white plantation owner graciously cracking a whip on his black slave's bare back before taking him to the shed and mutilating his genitals. After all, slaves, which were valuably property black then, were slowly purchased for the purpose of being maimed, disfigured, and disabled by the very people who expected them to perform long days of manual labor at a steady pace. Makes sense, doesn't it? They'd rather not talk about the things included in Florida's guidelines. That is to say, that actual history of slavery, which was a global practice in many places, it still is, and touched everywhere from Asia to Europe and to Africa, where the Atlantic slave trade began. Yes, Africans traded slaves. No, the inconvenient truth doesn't erase America's past, and no one said it did. and no one said it did. There's this piece of the curriculum for grades 6 through 8 on, quote, the various duties and trades performed by slaves, like the carpentry and field cropping, which also requires that classroom lesson, quote, includes how slaves developed skills in which, in some industries, could be applied for their personal benefit. Here's how NBC News interpreted that line. Quote, new Florida standards teach students that some black people benefited from slavery because it taught useful skills. This is explicitly not what the guidelines say. They say that while enslaved, blacks learned things of note. One might imagine that the lesson there is in the dignity and the adaptability of a group of people going through a unique hardship. Of course, what I just said. But no, quote, slaves were owned as chattel by other human beings who stole their freedom, labor, and bodily autonomy, wrote Boy in addressing the issue. Quote, to say that any more than fortunate few could parlay their skills into anything that might improve their lives is to spin a fiction. To Bowie and to his peers, American slavery, shameful as it was, isn't a fascinating and rich part of black history with three-dimensional figures who preserved in and even transcended horrible circumstances. It's chattel and chattel only. This would be like a gay film critics only wanting anyone to know about Will and Grace and nothing about Brokeback Mountain, Philadelphia, or Moonlight. What do you mean? No, of course there's nothing more to us than being this spiritually comic relief and a woman's best friend. How pathetic. But that's exactly how the left wants black Americans to feel now and forever. And I completely agree with this article. And this is exactly what I was saying before. If you cannot look at your situation that you're in right now and make the most out of it, then you're not going to have a good life at all, and you're going to hate your life. But the slaves, which is a powerful, powerful person, and kudos to every single person, God bless their soul, that they went through this 100 years ago, or 120 years ago now. God bless their soul that they went through this and they made the most out of their situation and they came out of slavery with trades. They could say, oh, I learned this while suffering. And, this is actually a really, really good skill. But you can't say that, of course. It's stupid. Moving into the next article from the Federalist, we have highlights from the House hearing on transgenderism. So if you do not already know, the House actually had a hearing on transgenderism, just like how the House had a hearing on aliens, which we're going to talk about too, because of the fact that I'm an alien believer myself. So, but I feel like this is a little bit more important. I'll tease that other article for the Friday episode, which I'll start off the episode on because I want to recap as much as humanly possible. So, starting with the highlights, I watched some of these clips from this hearing and it's really good. So, it's amazing that Chloe Cole was actually here. Chloe Cole is actually a person that went from female to male, but then she regretted it and then went back to female. And now she wants to talk about how awful the whole entire situation was, and she wants to warn other people about this said thing. So, of course, when she starts talking about the harmful effects that it had on her body, people want to start shutting her down, and they want to have no disagreement to their opinions whatsoever, and that's exactly how the left works on most things anyway. But moving with this article, we have the House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution and Limited Government held a hearing on the horrors of child transgender medical interventions Thursday. Here are the highlights. Chloe Cole. Let me be your final warning. Chloe Cole, a 19-year-old detransitioner who had a double mastermectomy, testified before lawmakers about the nightmare she experienced as a victim of an adolescent transgender ideology. Quote, it's caused permanent changes to my body. My voice would forever be deeper, my jawline sharper, my nose longer, she said. My bone structure permanently masculined, my Adam's apple more prominent, my fertility unknown. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like a monster. My childhood was ruined along with thousands of detransitioners that I know through our networks, Cole said, after beginning medical attempts to transition at the age of 12. And it's amazing. Cole addresses parent of trans-identified daughter. Cole broke down in the hearing when at one point she addressed another witness on the panel who was a professional counselor and a parent of child in pursuit of transgender medical interventions. Miriam Reynolds is the mother of an 18-year-old daughter who has identified as male since she was 11 years old with parental encouragement. So this is just disgusting. 11 years old. When Texas Republican Congressman Chip Roy asked Cole to respond to the other witnesses on the panel, Cole directed her remark at Reynolds. Quote, I understand that Miss Reynolds is scared for her child, and I just want to set the record straight that I don't hate her. I don't want anybody to think that in this room I hate her. In fact, I see my own mother and my own father in her, and that clearly she loves her child, and she's doing the best with what she's given. Unfortunately, it's not much, and for that, I'm sorry. I think every parent deserves the utmost grace and guidance with how to help their child. That being said, I don't wish for her child to have the same result that I did, she added. So she's actually being really, really kind to these parents here, and she's not calling them out. She's saying, listen, my parents went through the same exact thing as you guys, and I can really feel for you. Leah Thomas, teammate, says swimmers were told to undergo re-education. Paul Schumann, a former swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania, testified that she and her teammates were compelled to change into the women's locker room with the male teammate Leah Thomas by school athlete officials 18 times per week. That's disgusting. Quote, when we tried to voice our concern to the athletic department, we were told that Leah swimming and being in our locker room was non-negotiable, and we were offered psychological services to attempt to re-educate us to become more comfortable with the idea of undressing in front of a male. Scrunin said, to sum up the university's response, we, the women, were the problem, not the victims. And we were expected to confirm, to move over, and to shut up. Our feelings don't matter. No, that's stupid. These people that are responsible for this should be fired. Scrunin testified that the school required women to change in front of their male peers despite prior history as victims of sexual misconduct. Quote, I know that women with sexual trauma who are adversely impacted by having biological males in their locker room without their consent, she said, and I'm one of these women. I was sexually assaulted on June 3rd, 2016 in a bathroom, and I was able to forgive my attacker, but violence against women still exists. Thomas became a mascot for male domination over women's sports when he began to rack up championship titles over female competition last year. Thomas won the first place in the NCAA Women's Swimming Championship in the 500-yard freestyle, of course, because he's a guy. Democrat recommends barriers in women's locker rooms. Okay, so it's just stupid. So they say, oh, well, what if you're still in the women's locker room, but there's a barrier? And that barrier is somewhat of a wall, but it's not a wall, but it divides rooms. Wait a second. So that's a wall. And then outside of this said wall for the guys that are going to be in the women's locker room, we put up a wall and we put a door into that said separate room now, and then outside of that door we say male. Wait a second. Oh wow, I just solved the world's problems. We separate the males and the girls, the males and the women, from each other so they can have their privacy. Wait a second now. That's perverse. Wait, we can't do that. Tennessee Democrat Rep Steve Cohen offered a solution to female athletes uncomfortable with men in their women's locker rooms. Quote, I think Penn didn't deal with your situation like they could have and should have, Cohen said to Scullin, explaining how the school should have put up some type of different barriers in the women's locker room. It's almost as if separate locker rooms could do the trick. Of course, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. This is exactly where we're going to end off the video here. I just don't get. I don't get people. I mean, I get people, but I don't get people. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid that I feel like my brain is shrinking in size by having to deal with these arguments that are just purely on a logical scale. They're stupid. They're uneducated. And they're uneducated, and it's the perverse to actually come up with an idea that stupid. I have no response for such stupidity. You separate the male's locker room and the girl's locker room. It's so easy, guys. So easy. You're a guy or you're a female, okay? There's only two. You choose the locker room that you were born as, okay? Stop playing around. Stop playing around. With that being said, we're going to end off the episode here. Thank you all for watching, and I hope they have a great rest of your day. If you did like this episode, please like and subscribe down below because I do post new episodes of the show every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I do have new reactions posted to this channel every single Saturday. Thank you all for watching, and I hope they have a great rest of your day. Bye.